Good morning, Bulldogs. Today we are going to be getting into our text features. Yesterday we talked a little bit about the differences, the key differences between nonfiction and fiction, and a little bit about the informational text. So when you are reading informational text, you will find that you rely heavily on certain text features to help you understand and find material. So we're going to go over a few today. Now, we're not going to go over every single text feature that you could possibly imagine. There's just too many of them. But we're going to go over some that you should already be familiar with and some that you will find extremely helpful as you move on through this year and into future years. Some of these you use on a very regular basis with Mr. Maxwell in his science class. Some you're going to need to use for my class for your research and reading. So I have my notes pulled up. This is available in the notes file that you guys should all know how to find. If you go onto Canvas, onto your homepage, important links, notes, and this is going to be in your reading notes because it is a genre of reading, and this is where you're going to find these notes. So you should have these, and I uploaded a completed set of the notes, so you don't need to fill in the blank, you don't need to highlight anything. You're welcome to, of course. If you would like to print these off for your records, that would be a great choice so that you can have these for later when you need them, okay? So let's get started. So we're going to start at the beginning. So if we see table of contents here, most of your nonfiction, especially your informational nonfiction pieces, are going to have a table of contents. This is found at the beginning of the book or the magazine or the newspaper. They're going to have your table of contents, and that is going to tell the reader where you can find a particular chapter, a reference section, a particular article within that publication. Okay, and you all know table of contents, you've all used them, okay? Your glossary is a reference section. It's not part of the typical reading. It is something for you to refer to if you need it. That glossary is going to define key words that you may not know what they are within the book. And most of the time, for 7th grade, those unknown words, they're going to be identified within the book so that you know, hey, I don't know what this word means. I know it's in the glossary. Okay, and we're going to talk about how you know those words, but usually they're going to be in bold, maybe they could be in a different color, but they are pointed out, they are there to stand out so that you know what they are. Okay. All right, if we look at, then we have a footnote. A footnote, and you guys are probably not going to be using these until you start your more extensive research in high school, but you should still know what it is, that you know what you're looking at when you're reading a text. A footnote is at the bottom of the page, foot, bottom, I don't know. And that is going to explain what a word or phrase means. It could be telling you a source that the author is using on that page, or it could just give you more information on the topic in that little footnote. So it's not used all the time, but it's an option to use if you need to. Okay. We have sidebars. You do use sidebars in your science class, and then I know you use them in your social studies class, especially if you look at the text. If you're using a textbook, there could be a little text box or maybe a circle with some information on it out to the side, maybe in a margin. And if that has any information about the overall text, that is a sidebar. So if you are reading about cells in Mr. Maxwell's class, and then out to the side in a circle or a box or a weird shape, it gives you a little something extra about a cell, or like one of those did you know facts. That's a sidebar. Okay, it's going to give you some more information. Okay. We have an appendix. The appendix, these are going to be in your science books always. They're going to be in medical books, science books. Sometimes you might find them in math, especially when you get into your higher level math classes. The appendix is just going to have some additional information, and it's going to be located in the back of the book, and it's going to provide you as the reader with some additional background of the topic. So we don't need to include it in the chapter because that would make it a little too wordy. So we're just going to put that background information in an appendix in the back of the book so that if you need it, you can go there. Okay? Now, at the very beginning of the book, usually at the very, very beginning, you have a whole page dedicated to who published it, when was it published, where was it published, publishing company, all that. That is what we call the copyright notice. Okay, if you've ever seen that, the fun C symbol, the C with a circle around it, that is a copyright notice. So on that page, you're going to find the legal information that tells you the date it was copyrighted, and it's usually only going to have a year. Copyright 2020, copyright 1985. It's going to have a year usually, and it will have the publisher, Pearson. Trying to think of other publishers for your school textbooks, but your books that you get from the library also have a publisher. Random House, Penguin Publishing, any of those will work. It's going to have trademark information of that publisher in the publication. So it's usually going to have a city and state that that publisher is located in. Okay. Your index is going to be an alphabetized list. It's the key word there, alphabetized, of all the topics or people covered in that book. Okay, in that collection of material. Going to have your topics covered. Now, sometimes, depending on what sort of informational text you're looking at, you could have a glossary of topics, and then you could have a glossary of people. That is especially important if you're dealing with a history book or a history text, because that kind of makes it a little different. But a lot of times, especially in school, it's just going to be one long index. Okay, so if we're looking for a person, we're going to look by last name first. Okay, so if we're going to look to see if Miss Fields is listed in the book, are we going to look under N or are we going to look under F? We're going to look under F for Fields. That's her last name. Okay, and then it'll go by first name. Okay, so the alphabetized list is going to be in the back of the book. It's in the very, very, very back of the book. So if you need to get straight to that index, turn the book over, open it, there's your index. Okay, and it's also going to have not only the names of the topics and the people, it's also going to have what page or pages you can find that topic discussed in that text, which is very helpful if you're looking for some quick information real quick. Okay, so the index is going to be at the very back of the book, and it is alphabetized. Okay, then we have our maps and our illustrations. Okay, a map, you guys know what a map is. The illustration, similar. Okay, it's going to be a picture. It's going to be within the text. It could be maybe above the text or out to the side, but it is going to give you a visual of what is being described or discussed in the text. Okay, so if I'm giving you a map of the Wild Wild West, wouldn't it help if I gave you a map of where I'm talking about? Or maybe if I gave you an illustration of what a Western town looked like. Okay, that's what that would be for. Most of the time, these maps and illustrations are going to have a caption, and the caption is usually going to be something really little, maybe one sentence, if that, right underneath it. Okay, and that caption is going to tell you pretty much what this picture is all about. Map. That this is what Wild Wild West looked like in 1884. Okay, so it's going to have just the key information about that image. Okay. Then you have a diagram. A diagram is going to be more in your science-based texts because it is going to be a labeled picture. Okay, it's going to be. It doesn't have to be a real picture. It could be an illustration, not necessarily a cartoon, but it could be just a lifelike illustration, not an actual picture. And it's going to have detailed information regarding a particular topic. So think of when you were reading about the cells with Mr. Maxwell, a picture of a cell, then that is labeled, that is a diagram. So a diagram is going to have labeled parts of the picture. Okay, so what part of the cell is which part? That's what your diagram is for. Okay. You've got bylines. When we are dealing with informational text, we need to know what a byline is. Byline, who wrote the text. Okay, that is important when you are reading a magazine article or a newspaper article, because that's how we can identify who wrote it, who published it, who did the research. The byline tells me who wrote it. Okay. Your keywords, which we talked about with the glossary. These keywords are going to be in your textbooks. They could be in a magazine. They're not usually in the newspapers, but they can be in any informational text, and they're going to be bolded. Okay, that is for emphasis. Okay, not only is it just going to be to make the word stand out, but in some cases, it could be a word that the targeted reader probably doesn't know. You probably have not heard it or understand it yet. So that's why we're going to make it in bold, and you're usually going to find that word in the glossary. And maybe sometimes, depending on the situation, you might even have a definition out to the side of the text that says, hey, this word really means this. But then it's also in the glossary as well. Okay. Then we have our heading. This is going to be at the beginning of a new topic within a text. Similar, maybe think of chapters. It's a way to group our text with similar topics. Usually your heading, keyword in the heading is going to be in the index. Okay. And that heading is always going to be pretty large, and it's going to be bolded. Usually it could be in a different color, but it's going to be bigger, always bigger, as a way to set your eyes to, hey, we're talking about something new here. Okay. Your bibliography is kind of your sources. Where'd you get your info? What makes you an expert on writing this nonfiction piece? You got to have some information. You've got to do some research. And the sources that an author uses to create this informational text is called a bibliography. And that's where it's going to list what articles they used, what materials and resources they used to gather their information to write this information down for you, to write this text. Okay. Caption, which we just talked about with the map and illustration, it's a description. It's always going to be in small print, and it's going to give more information about the topic. Okay. And it's usually a complete sentence, but it's usually in very small font, and it could be in italics, but it's just a little something so you know what you're looking at. Okay. Your timeline is a diagram that shows events that happen in chronological order. So think back to our Greek and Latin roots. Chronological order means in time order. Okay, so timeline. The catch is it can go in any direction. Okay, I could go from the year 2000 to the year 2005, 2010, 2020. I could do that. Or I could even go in reverse order and go 2000, 1995, 1990, 1985. But you have to be consistent. You can't go both ways. It's either from start to finish or from finish to start. Okay, but it's got to show it in order. And the timeline is usually going to have the year and the event. It may get more specific and have a month and day, but it always needs to have a time and an actual event. Okay. Then we have our subheadings. These are within the headings. So you have a heading with the overall topic. Your subheading is going to take out a subsection of that writing, and it's going to label it for us. And that is a great way to break up or chunk the material that we're reading. So instead of reading about science, we're going to read about a particular part of science. Okay? So your subheadings is kind of a sub of the subsection. Okay, so make sure you keep these notes. These will be very helpful for you for your assignment tomorrow. I think I've mentioned this week already, you guys are going to have an assignment. Maybe I didn't mention it. Well, I'll mention it now. You will have an assignment tomorrow where you're going to need to match up these words with the definitions. Then you're going to need to match it with an example of these words. And I do not believe I'm not giving you all these words. You're only going to have some, but these notes in general will help you to complete that. And if you have any questions about these text features as you go through reading additional nonfiction pieces, you've got these notes to fall on. So if you have any other questions, or if you're still kind of confused about any of these, shoot me an email or give me a call and we will work through them. Okay? So in the meantime, make sure that you have these notes saved. You can make a copy for your drive, or if you know how to find them on the notes page, then you are great. Okay, so if you have any questions, just reach out. All right. Hope you'll have a great day.